Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades, a special Tuesday edition this week because of the holiday. I am Matt Connarton, and of course, appropriately, as always, to my right is the Honorable Gary S. Hopper.
Matt! Happy New Year, almost. Oh, I got you something.
I'm glad this is my deaf ear.
I know.
You did?
Yes, I got you something.
Oh, thank you.
This is like, you know, I've given you more of a yearly bonus than I ever have. Let's just put it that way.
Oh, that's awesome.
Go ahead, you can open it.
Really? Okay. I can't wait to get my bonus. Norm never gives me a bonus.
We do know how to party. See, we got candies and everything. This is like a New Year's Eve party.
Thanks, Matt. It is awesome to work with you.
Oh, I didn't mean that.
And then what's that? Is that a signature?
Yeah, it's kind of like scribbles.
Oh.
I could be a doctor. My
And a
handwriting
subway
is so almost illegible. I could actually be a doctor, I think.
Mine is actually worse. Thank you very much,
wow.
Gary. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I
love chocolate.
don't have anything for you. I'm broke because I've been trying to buy insurance through the
Oh, yeah.
healthcare.gov.
How is that going? The last I heard, you were
.gov.
able to log in. And have they taken money out of your account yet?
No, because I haven't been able to actually sign up for any insurance yet. I kind of hit a wall, and I can't seem to get any further with it.
Did you call
I haven't called the navigators yet, but the website is not allowing me to proceed any further. It says I'm approved for something, but it won't tell me exactly what.
Because the thing is, I think you're being selfish. It is the young people like yourself who are the entire system is dependent on.
Yes, the Young Invincibles.
You're the young invincibles,
I
so
am
that you
40
can
now.
overpay what you really need
Right.
for the more mature members of the society like myself.
Yes.
So I really need you to hurry up and get that squared away.
I know. I'm trying. Boy, I'll tell you.
It's the least you can do. I mean, because you're really at that, especially the 20s to 30s. They're making as little as they ever will because
Yes.
they're just on that upward slope of income.
Right.
And that's when we should tax them the most.
Yes.
Before they get a chance to actually get enough money to put a down payment on a house. Get them while they're young. Just cripple them, so financially cripple them at the beginning instead of waiting until they're old and retired.
That way they're conditioned.
They're conditioned into
They know to expect that.
They learn to accept failure.
Yes.
Early and quickly.
Yes.
And devastatingly.
Isn't that really what America's
That's
about?
what the government should be for, I think.
Yes. Why not?
You guys are crazy, you know that?
Yes, yeah.
You were warned.
It wasn't like this should be a surprise. Anyway, our guest today is Senator Bob Smith, and I want to say as a disclaimer before we get started that I worked on Senator Smith's campaign in 2002. I don't know if I did the one before that. My daughter was actually a page for you in D.C.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, it was really
wow.
cool. We still have United States Senate cups at home and stuff like that. I told him before the show that I was glad he's running because my Bob Smith for Senate T-shirt's worn out. It's got holes in it and stuff like that. It's not something I can wear in public anymore. Well, I live in Ware, so I guess
We'll
it
get
doesn't
some
matter.
new ones for you.
Yeah.
There you go.
So anyway, I just wanted to say that beforehand so that people, if they, if later on they say, oh, well, he was being nice because, they're friends and all that stuff. Well, that's my comment to that.
Oh,
so,
you need a tissue for that.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Wow, that was pretty gross.
Yeah.
So, anyway, Senator, I'd like to start because the thing is, one of the awesome things that you bring to the table is experience. And like, for instance, one of the things people don't know about Senator Smith, because people, if it's more than the story's over a week old, it's kind of passé. You were very upset, if I remember correctly, and this is a long time ago, with the United States Senate because it started caving on the gun rights stuff early on, way before there was a Tea Party, way before there was all this activism, especially on the Second Amendment. You were there, if I remember correctly, it's a long time, but you were doing filibusters and everything else trying to keep gun laws from going into place.
When are we talking? What kind of time span?
This would have been in the late 90s, probably, early 2000s.
Okay.
Yeah, good memory. First of all, let me just say Happy New Year to you guys, and Happy New Year to all of your viewers. And I'm delighted to be here and appreciate the invitation. Yeah, those days were very frustrating for conservative Republicans because I saw unfolding then what we saw come to fruition later, which was that we were going to walk away from some of our principles. And once you do that, your base is going to leave you, and they're not going to be there, and we're going to lose, and we're going to lose our majority, and we're going to lose our ability to govern, and that's what happened. And you're correct. I mean, we saw people, some of the leadership, not all, but some of the leadership in our own party caving on those issues, especially guns, and Bill Clinton was winning, and it was frustrating. So I did use the filibuster, and the filibuster is always good if it's something you want to stop, and you hate it, of course, if it's something you want to win. Yeah. But I think, having on that same point, Senator Reid, I think, made a terrible mistake by what he's done now by changing the Senate rules, to be able to stop filibusters with a simple majority. The rules were made for a reason.
How long ago was that rule made? Because when they said it was a rule, I know that every 2 years in the House, we have a redoing of the rules.
Yeah, I don't know how, Gary. I don't know how long it was. It's been there a long time, and the purpose is really.
So it's a tradition, really, more so than a rule, right?
It is a rule and a tradition, but
decades,
I think that the key to it is, things can pass quickly in the House. They just simply take the votes, take the numbers. And the Senate was designed to say, okay, let's slow things down a bit. Let's take a look. The bill just passed the House. Boom, it went through, whatever. Who knows what the vote was. And you say, okay, if it's that good, then the Senate will pass it. If it's that bad, maybe the Senate will stop it. But we at least take a look at it, and that's what it was designed to do. And as I said, you're very frustrated if it's something you want, with a filibuster, but
it's a double-edged sword. Yeah.
Everybody was, ticked off a while back on the health debate, but it turned out that a certain senator from Texas was pretty much on target when he said it was a bad law, and it hadn't been read and hadn't been vetted properly, and that's why he was trying to delay it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the Second Amendment is something you stood up for. Like you said, you lost. Because I started. As time went on, I think I got involved in politics because of that. Because as time went on, I saw that government was starting to turn its back on the Constitution because they felt that was going to get them elected.
Well, a lot of people invoke Reagan, and I don't choose to overdo that. But I did serve in the Congress with President Reagan when President Reagan was president. And Reagan had that optimism about America, which is what I like. I think that we do have problems. I used an analogy a while back in some remarks I made about two famous ships that sailed in different eras from England to the United States. One was the Titanic, which was a ship that was supposed to never sink. Everybody was happy, and it was an unsinkable ship, and they were going to have this pleasure cruise all the way from England to America. Everything was going to be hunky-dory. It hit an iceberg because they were not paying attention, and bang, down to the bottom it went. And then the Mayflower, 300 years before that, they were, on a harsh trip with all kinds of hardships, weather and death and all kinds of disease and good Lord knows, but they made it to the shores and they founded a nation. And so in one case they endured the hardship, and the other case with the Titanic they ignored the hardships. So what I believe that Reagan was right when he said, look, we're Americans. Let's rise to the challenge. We've got tough problems right now, and we can dwell on the past and the mistakes of the past, and if people want to fire away at me, mistakes I've made them. But I'm not here for that. I'm here because in that tradition of President Reagan, I think we can rise to the challenge. We're Americans. That's what we do. That's how we win. That's how we win wars. That's how we win freedom. That's how we, help other nations in need. That's us. That's who we are. That's the essence of who we are. And so whether it's healthcare that's a challenge, or whether it's foreign policy that needs to be straightened out, or whether it's a war we need to win, or whatever it is, we rise to the challenge. We get it done. We don't whine about it. I remember Jimmy Carter sitting in the White House with a sweater or something like this.
The malaise speech.
Oh, it's so cold. Turn your thermostats down. And here comes President Reagan.
Yeah.
Come on, we're Americans. Let's find more energy. We're good. Let's go. Let's turn the economy on and turn it around.
Yeah.
That's what I'm about. This should be, look, Jean Shaheen, very nice person. I like her personally, but her views are wrong. And we need to have that good debate. It doesn't have to be personal, and it can be a debate between whether or not we should mandate somebody to buy insurance, or whether or not we should find out more about what happened in Benghazi, or whether we should, have less government or more government, less freedom or more freedom, and on down the line. That's the debate we'll have, and that's what I think is the greatness about America, certainly in our process, and that's why I'm here. I know that there are a lot of good people out there who care, who want to help. The response has been absolutely unbelievable. I didn't really know how to gauge it.
Really?
And it's been very, very positive, and we've only been at it a couple of weeks. And, I had to struggle with the decision for a while. I mean, I wanted to be sure that it was the right thing to do, not only for me personally, but more importantly for the people of New Hampshire. And I think with the leadership, and I'll let you ask another question in a second here. With the leadership, the background that I've had.
We got time.
I know. The background that I've had, I mean, I've taken a lot of arrows and a lot of issues.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
I mean,
part of the gig.
Yeah, exactly. Truman used to say, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. I know it's coming, but I don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm gonna try to separate that and get out there and say, okay, folks, look beyond it. All right, here you can attack Smith on this, attack Smith on that, but let's look beyond that. Why is he here? Because we need leadership to turn this country around. We don't have much time. $17 trillion in debt, on and on and on. And I think, look, I can't do it alone. I got to have help from all the people here in the state, number one, to win, and then number two, when I win, to have the support to govern. But remember this, leadership is not necessarily saying everything that everybody wants to believe, everything want to hear. Leadership is saying, we got to make some changes here. We can't do it. We can't save this country if we don't. And that's why I'm running. That's why I'm here.
I know that not to go. I'm going to go back a little bit because that's the way I am. One of the things that really aggravated me, and this is my opinion, this is what I saw, was that you were a great senator. You were one of the, I'll give you. This is how good this guy served his people. I have a friend in my town who owns a business, and he went to you for help. I forget what it was, and he said to me privately, I don't think he's mentioned it to you. I don't know that he did or didn't, but he said you were the only federal legislator or in the federal government that he went to your office to talk to, and he didn't have to have his checkbook at hand to talk to them. I am not kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, this is he privately came over and says, this is what kind of person this guy is.
Gary, before I ever ran for office, I was a teacher, and also obviously I was a dad and a husband before I ran for office as well. And I always tried to do things that I felt people would be proud of. I mean, when I think about and I look back on my life, your proudest accomplishments, your kids still love you, right? They don't run the other way when they see me. and my wife still loves me after 48 years. So those are the things that matter, your family and your health, of course. But I tried to set an example like that for young people. And it's funny you said what you said, because I used to have people come into my offices in New Hampshire and say, I'm a Democrat, or I'm an independent. I'm not a Republican. Can you help me? And I said, I'm proud to help you. That's what I'm here for. If you have a problem with the federal government, whether it's Social Security, IRS, Medicare, whatever, I'm here to help you. And if you truly are deserving of help, we'll do our best to get it for you. It doesn't matter what your politics are. Once you're elected, you represent all the people, whether some people will like that and some people won't. But I always tried to look at it that way.
Yeah.
How, on that note, and I don't know what the United States Senate ethics guidelines are, but I was personally offended when I found out that Jeanne Shaheen and I think it was it 5 other United States senators.
Oh, the IRS letter.
Asked the IRS basically to target members of the New Hampshire or wherever Tea Party, and use extra scrutiny to find information about them. Is that kind of an overreach of your authority as a United States senator?
It absolutely is an overreach, and I'm not and I'm very serious about that. I mean, this goes to a much larger issue, though, and this is symptomatic of it, but it goes to the issue of, invasion of privacy. The IRS is kind of like, when you face an IRS, I've had one audit in my life, probably have more after I run this campaign.
You'll have more after being on this show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we might. But, especially the IRS, when they come calling, you're on the defensive, and you better be prepared. And it's kind of like a judge in a courtroom, I don't care if you're a senator or who you are, when they bang that gavel down there, you are going to be toeing the line. Mm-hmm. So it's a real disgrace when the IRS does something wrong or invasive that is really unfitting for what the role that they have. I'm not saying that every agent does it. There's some wonderful people that work in the federal government, but when that happens, it's disappointing and it's a letdown. And for anybody in the federal government to call for somebody to be investigated simply because of their politics, or what they might, plan to do, such as the Tea Party, is really outrageous. And you get into the privacy issues, and then you get into spying issues. Mm-hmm. You could go on and on. But to me, it's symptomatic of what's happening with the too big of a government. Obama right now is riding in the saddle. But the point is, this has been building for a long time, and it has to be stopped because. Big Brother, I mean, it's getting beyond Big Brother. It's Big Brother. It's Big Brother's Big Brother. Are you kidding me? With spying on private citizens and eavesdropping, drones come. This has got to stop, or we're going to lose our country. Even, I would say to my friends out there who are moderate, liberals, independents, I know you don't like this. And you got to put, and what I'm going to ask people to do in this election, age and wisdom has some wisdom. Wisdom and age are helpful. And I'm going to ask people to try to look beyond the party politics, whether you're Republican, Democrat. Look at the issue.
Right.
What do you think about the fact that you're forced to buy health insurance? You're forced to buy it, or you're forced to give it up, or forced to give up your doctor. Forced to, or pay 4 or 5 times more in premiums, or have a higher deductible. What do you think of that? What do you think of the fact that NSA can spy on you with drones or eavesdrop on your phone calls? If you don't like it, it doesn't get into politics. It transcends politics.
Right.
Look for the people who are willing to stop it. And I can't do it alone. You got to have enough people in support to stop it. But that's what I'm going to be about. And I'm going to try to look beyond the partisan stuff. Yes, I'm running on the Republican ballot. That doesn't mean that I'm not asking for the help of people who are independents and Democrats who are sick of all this stuff and worried about what's going to happen to our country for our grandchildren.
We actually had a second.
That's okay.
We had a show quite a while ago with the head of the Civil Liberties Union, Claire Ebel. I think you might have.
I know. I've heard of her. Sure.
Yeah, and Neil Kirk, the state rep for the good state rep from where, and that was what the show was about, was privacy.
Yeah.
And there you have Claire, who's got to be as far left as you can go, and myself, who's as far right as you can go, and Neil Kirk, who's basically kind of in the middle of the road, all agreeing and lamenting the complete loss of privacy people have today.
Yeah.
The fact that you walk down a street, it's like what is it in England? If you spend a day in England, you've been photographed and videotaped. X number of hundreds of times everywhere.
Absolutely, and it's dangerous. It's very dangerous. And as I said, the American Civil Liberties Union is certainly not a Bob Smith organization. That's for sure, to say the least. But they do want to protect your liberties, and I think some of those people are going to be very upset about what's happening. Yeah. And it's not a partisan thing.
No.
But if you happen to be there in office at the time supporting this kind of stuff, like the letter that you referred to that some senators signed, then you got to answer for that.
Well, the thing is, it's worse than that, because not only did she allow this stuff to happen, okay, in other words, becoming more and more powerful, and then she used that same government to try to crush the people that might be opposed to her. So it's not only that she's not only okay with the invasion of privacy and the growth of the scope and breadth of the federal government, she apparently wants that so that she can use that to attack people that might, might be opposed to her.
Our friends on the liberal side basically want, it's whether it's the single payer system, which is the ultimate goal for the health insurance thing, to have an industry to have health insurance. That's where it's headed. Yeah, they want a single payer, and then there's nobody else, and it's the government, and that's it. Whether it's that issue or some other issue, privacy or what it is, you get the government gets so big and so cumbersome. I remember years ago reading a comment somewhere from Henry Kissinger when he became Secretary of State. He decided, and I, as I say, I read it somewhere, but I can't give you the source. But he, when he came into office, the first few days, he decided he would write up just an order, just a little, some kind of a phony thing, handed it to his assistant, and it went back down through the bureaucracy. And he said, I'm going to just see how long this goes down through the bureaucracy before I get an answer. Well, it never came back. I mean, it totally got, and it came from the Secretary of State. So, our government is too big. It's too big, and it cannot function properly. Not even the President of the United States can always know what's happening.
Right.
And so,
as he's demonstrated. I feel like on the IRS thing, and I'm curious to know, Senator, if you were in office when all this went down, how you might have reacted. I feel like you guys, and I say you guys because I'm not a Republican, I'm an independent, but I feel like there was an opportunity missed with the IRS thing, because that would have been a great time for the Republican Party to seize on that and say, look, this is an example of why we need to gut the IRS, why we need to do what Reagan did. We need to go back and revisit simplifying the tax code to take some of that power away from the IRS to terrorize people, so that this kind of thing, this kind of abuse isn't so easy for them to pull off, or for someone like Jeanne Shaheen to manipulate them into pulling off. And I think that would have been a really great time to do that. Say, let's gut the IRS and simplify all this.
I think the Republicans, I can speak as a state legislator. There's some bills that I wanted to introduce, and it's like, you got a completely democratically controlled, you have the Senate. So you could. And then you got this he said, she said back and forth going on forever, and nothing being done about it.
But Matt, you're right. I mean, those points that you made are good ones. I mean, the truth is, it's going to be, and I support simplifying the tax code, whether it's they're all flat tax or whatever, but try to get rid of the IRS and get it, or at least simplify the code so that it's easy to implement. You fill it out on a piece of paper and turn it in, and that would be fair tax, flat tax. There are all kinds of options.
Sure.
Anything is an improvement over what we have. And you're right. The smaller you make it, the less power it has, the less invasive it is, and that's what we need to do. But having said that, it's going to be tough. And as I say, when you have a large bureaucracy like we have, and a horse is galloping, not only do you have to get on a galloping horse, you got to rein him in, and then you got to turn him around in that order. Get on, rein him in, and then turn him around. And
you could shoot him.
Well, that can't. You can't make all those. You can't make all those changes in one year or 2 years.
Yeah.
But what you can do is you can say, here's the plan. Whatever, I'll just throw a number out there, 10 years, we're going to do X, Y, Z to get to a balanced budget. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to reform entitlements. We're going to, reform the IRS. We're going to cut the bureaucracy, cut the education department, cut the energy department, commerce department, wherever there's bloated. But that won't get there. You got to reform entitlements. There are people who are going to say, oh, Smith's going to eliminate social. I'm not proposing that at all.
Means testing, are you in favor of that?
Do what?
Means testing.
Means testing. Well, sure. That should be part of it. Absolutely. But I mean, the point is, that's just one part of it. Put everything on the table, and let's look at how we can change it, so that we can save it, so that our grandchildren will at least have something. And that's unfortunately, it's all political now, and you can't touch it. But you got to be willing to touch it.
Rail,
And I'd rather lose telling the truth than lie and win. I mean, that's just that simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like I've said on the program for a long time. I think part of the problem is over time, all these programs that used to be done locally are now done federally.
They are.
And they can't do them well.
Exactly. It's an excellent point, and that's what we have to do. Those of us who are saying the government's too big and the programs are wrong, we need to have an alternative, and that's a good one, and that's a constitutional alternative. That's what it's meant to be, that it goes back to the states. Some of these programs can go back to the states. Some can even go back to the local communities, let alone the states. There's too much stuff at the federal level, and the only way it's going to happen, I tell people over and over again, and I know people are frustrated and they're turned off, and a lot of the Tea Party folks are turned off, a lot of activists are turned off. But as I tell them, don't quit now. Mm-hmm. I mean, we owe it to our posterity to save this country. I mean, our founders went in with their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. They took on the largest, most powerful nation in the world, England, and won. And how did they win? They won with, Washington had very little army. He was a great leader. They had leadership, and they had faith in God. They believed in their principles, and they won. And we owe it to them to save the nation that they created, and even more importantly, we owe it to our posterity, our grandkids, and them and their grandkids to save it. And really, when you think about it, how much of a sacrifice do we really have to do that? It's not that much.
No,
it's not that much, really. We're not asking people to sacrifice their lives here or their honor. We're asking them to sacrifice perhaps a few dollars here and there, but we've got to get a handle on spending. And you can cut everything in the discretionary accounts, which is about 20% of the budget, and you won't balance it.
Right.
You must reform things that are in the entitlement category, or you cannot. And you cannot balance it. And the reform would include exactly as you said, Gary, which is to move some stuff back that way, back to the states, back to the communities where it's more efficient.
Yeah, I love that idea. I don't think we'll ever see it, but I love that idea.
We won't see it if we won't see it if we don't get the numbers in the Senate and the House and in the White House to do it. We'll never see it. And if it gets to that point where we've just decided that we're going to have a socialist nation, that's going to be unfortunate. We're going to go down the tubes. But I can't bring myself to be pessimistic about it. I in that Reagan tradition, he was so strong and had so much faith in America, and I think the people out there do have that faith. But it's tough to get. I've won and I've lost, and it's a heck of a lot more fun to win. But when you lose, you got to get up, dust yourself off, and get back in the arena, and that's what I'm doing. And I'm doing it not because I believe I'm some miracle worker. I'm not, but I need help. I need thousands of people here in New Hampshire to help me, and frankly, thousands of people across the country who know that if we change this Senate seat, it very well may be the 51st Senate seat that allows us to reorganize the Senate, remove Harry Reid, remove we wouldn't have Obamacare today if we didn't have Harry Reid as majority leader. And remember, not one Republican, not one moderate, not one liberal, not one conservative supported Obamacare. They passed it. But again, it's beyond the partisanship now. It's here. So I don't want to talk to Democrats and go in their face and say, you guys, you jammed it down our throats. That's not going to win it. Yeah. What I want to do is I want to go to the guy out there. I talked to a young woman yesterday in Merrimack. This is a true story. I'll be at 30 seconds. She's had a small business, a couple of cleaning ladies. They work together. And she said, I can't run my business. My health care is going to go up. My taxes are up. They're running me out of business. The government is too big. I need help. Mm-hmm. And the help is I'm not asking for money. I'm asking you to get off my back so that I can run my business. And those are the people that I want to talk to. And they're not wearing Republican labels and they're not wearing Democrat labels. They're independents like you for the most part who don't really participate in the Democrat Party or the Republican Party. They're the people that we need to motivate to get back into the process. So some of the Republicans are not going to like me because of that, because the Republicans aren't God's gift to the world. They're not.
Whoa.
And
well, Gary kind of likes to think.
Well,
or at least God's gift to wear.
Yeah. Okay. I'll go
I mean, the point is, we've made our share of mistakes too, and when we make them, we should admit them. God knows I've made them, and I try to admit them when I make them and move on.
Yeah.
So
I just don't do it when I'm in front of people.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
I tell my granddaughter, because she's 2 and doesn't understand.
There you go.
On one quick point before you go to something else, on the healthcare thing, Dr. Ben Carson was on Fox a while back.
He's awesome.
He's awesome. He really is. He's a great.
I'm wondering
brilliant.
if he's going to run for president.
He'd be a darn good one, let me tell you. And I'd have to look pretty hard, but I probably could support him pretty easily. But, he said he was over in Europe, over in Germany a while back. This was on Fox maybe a month ago. He said, I was over in Europe and I was talking to a friend who is a physician. He's a physician as well. And he talked to a friend who's a physician in Germany. And his friend said to him, Dr. Carson, I was so disappointed when you passed Obamacare. And he said, Carson said, well, I'm surprised. Why were you disappointed? You're working in a socialist system where everything is free. It's all paid for by the taxpayers. Free, not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he said, I'll tell you why. Because in America, in Germany, we are the providers. But over there in America, you're the innovators. Who now is going to find the new cures? Who's going to find the new pharmaceuticals? Who's going to find the new techniques like robotics and all the things that we create in America through the free enterprise competitive system, even in healthcare? Who's now going to be the creator, the innovator? And he was passionate about it. And man, it gave me goosebumps because that's who we are as Americans, man. We said, we're going to the moon. Kennedy, said, we're going to go to the moon. Yeah. No particular reason. We're just going to do it because we can. We're going to do it, and we're going to come back at the end of the decade. And we did it. So if we set our mind to it, if we say, you know what, by the end of the decade or whenever, the next 10 years, we're going to reverse this debt, we're going to balance this budget, we're going to downsize this government, we're going to start moving down from 17 trillion and headed downward. I'd like to see that clock going this way instead of this way. And that's what I'm about. That's why I'm here, and that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to talk to people one-on-one in interviews like this, one-on-one, whatever it takes, coffees, you name it, and try to let people understand you control the destiny of this country, not the politicians. You do, because you elect them, or you can unelect them. And that's what we have to do. That's where we're at.
I think you see the difference between the visions for our future very clearly in two different books. One was by Hillary Clinton called It Takes a Village, and Rick Santorum wrote It Takes a Family. In It Takes a Village, Hillary Clinton's version of a village was the state.
Mm-hmm.
In Rick Santorum's version of his book, it was the holding the family strong together.
Exactly.
And that produces good kids. And that's where we're at. We're at this precipice. Do we want to go to a state where the state is the solution, or do we want to revert back to local control where the family is the solution and the local politicians have more authority than the federal politicians almost?
Yep.
And I'll give you an example of I have glaucoma. I have known that I was going to get my eyes were going to get too dysfunctional to work as a machinist, because that's what I did for my trade for 34 years. Years before that, I knew eventually they would kick me out. I went to the Social Security office, and I what I wanted to do was appeal to them and say, look, if we can work together and maybe help me learn a different trade where my eyes don't matter as much, and do something where we work something out, instead of waiting until I'm blind, I get kicked out of work, and then I'm on disability, it seems a lot more logical than waiting till I'm disabled. And they said, no, we can't even talk to you until you're disabled. And, it's like we have like a town clerk, Maureen, in town, and I could fully envision a system where I went to Maureen, says, Maureen, and I show her the doctor's note, the doctor's information, said, this is what's going on. What can we got to work something out.
Right.
And she's a beautiful lady, and it's local, and she knows I've been in town forever. I've worked it, paid my taxes, and you can work something out. Or conversely, if I went to her and said all this crap, and she knew that I was a shyster, she'd look into it further. But when it's done by the federal government, it's just
it's inefficient.
Fill out the paper right.
Yeah, it's inefficient. You can, if any of you have ever participated, and any viewers that will know what I'm talking about, if you participate in a real estate closing, if you don't have financing, you got about, if either side, if there's no financing on either side, boom, one page, fill it out, done. here's my name, address, here's how much here's how much you're due at closing, if you're the seller.
Sure.
And here's how much you owe if you're the buyer. It's 1 or 2 pages. You go through the government, it's that high.
Yeah.
It's lawyers and banks and all the stuff all the requirements.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. It's too cumbersome. But however, people get indoctrinated into this, and to move it back is going to take an it's an educational process, but it is more efficient, and it does. And then people think, well, you're going to cut benefits. Not necessarily.
That's the
them.
fear, I think, that all of a sudden there just won't be anything.
And that's what they perpetuate out there.
Yeah.
What's the word? Perpetuate.
Yeah.
is that you this is going to happen, and we're going to lose all of our benefits, and the AARP will be running ads saying the Republicans are going to take our
powerful
They've
lobby.
been saying it now forever and haven't taken it yet.
Well, that's what actually happened. I had a friend of mine that was at the polls last election, and as you know, there was, I don't know, it was 10% of the electorate was all new. And it was something like, I don't know what the exact number is, but and she was sitting there listening to the people walking and talking to the Democrats who were holding signs, and almost all of them had gotten a very I told Matt, I thought I thought the Democrats and Obama used the NSA's information about people to help them, and I can't prove that, but I believe it. But anyway,
stranger things have happened.
Yeah. But anyway, almost unanimously, these new people were coming. So, well, I've never voted before, but I heard they were going to take my Social Security. Or a younger person would come in. I wasn't going to vote before, but they're going to make it so I can't get my contraception. And it was like the entire election boiled down to whether or not people could get something from the government. And it's sad that we've gotten to that point, but we got to inform people, because we're going to lose everything.
Well, exactly. And this concept that's being sold by President Obama that we're going to redistribute the wealth. Well, you know what? Somebody has to create the wealth before it can be redistributed. And and the private sector creates the wealth, not the government. The government doesn't create wealth. The government drains wealth. So there are good people who work for the federal government, and there are necessary jobs in the federal government, including our military for one. But they don't have to be 50% of the United States economy, and they don't. And I think we have to understand that there are legitimate functions that belong back at the local and the state level, and getting it back there is going to have to be, like I said, an educational process. It's not going to be easy, and it's not going to happen overnight.
And it's an uphill battle too, because I don't think it's not one of the issues that's focused on in Washington from what I've seen. I mean, when I turn on the news, I don't hear anybody talking about this.
I think, though, that, and I believe it was Charles Krauthammer who referred to this. It might be the words I'm paraphrasing, but maybe the doomsday for the liberals, this Obamacare. I don't know if it will be or not. That's pretty strong, but I do think it demonstrates that one bad law, not properly vetted, Nancy Pelosi, let's pass it and we'll read it and see what's in it.
Yeah.
Well, we passed it. We read it. And now we know what's in it. You're losing your doctors, you're losing your health insurance, or you're paying more. And so now we know that was a terrible mistake. And to those who say, well, you're not compassionate, you don't care about the poor, you don't care about the sick, nonsense. We're Americans, as I said before. We're not going to let people lie on the street with heart attacks in front of the emergency room. That's not who we are as a people. But we don't have to destroy.
Even if they're Democrats?
Even if they're Democrats.
No,
we don't have to destroy the best healthcare system in the world. Yeah. I mean, Assad came here for heart surgery, for crying out loud. I mean, give me a break. I mean, what? Where else do you want to go? I mean, I mean, it's the best system in the world. Is it perfect? Heck no, it's not perfect. But the point is, we can reform it. We can fix it. We can help make it better. But we don't have to throw the whole thing out and start with one single payer system. And that's why I think these people. Excuse me for interrupting, Matt. But I think these people are going to be the ones who are going to change the election in 2014 and 16. They're going to be the ones that are going to participate. They're going to realize, you know what they do up there in Washington or down there in Washington, wherever the case may be, affects me personally.
Right.
And so that's why I think it'll be a a change, a dramatic change.
I just want to clarify your position on Obamacare, though, because you mentioned reform. So you're interested in repeal and replace, or because I think there's some elements in the some folks in the party who would like to repeal and then just forget about it.
Well, clearly repeal it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think whether that can be done or not, I don't know. I can't do it as one person. I'd be lying if I said that I could. I'm only one senator.
Yeah.
And so you got to have at least 51, and maybe 60, depending on what the case may be, and probably a president that's going to sign it to repeal it. But the word "it," I sound like Bill Clinton here, but it is a big word because it's spread in different laws throughout this. It's administered by IRS and blah. It's so complicated and so complex. I think repealing it. I'm for repealing. Certainly the bad parts of it. I'm willing to look to see if there's anything good in there.
Yeah, there are elements that are very popular.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are things that we can do that the Democrats, or certainly the liberals, have fought for years, which is tort reform, allowing you to buy or sell insurance across state lines, medical savings accounts. I remember Ted Kennedy saying to me one time, only the rich can have medical savings accounts. That's not true at all.
No.
Medical savings accounts are tremendous opportunities for people to put money aside to be able to purchase insurance long into their senior citizen days from the time they're young.
And they're in control.
Yeah. And so we've got to be open-minded about it. But, I mean, the time to stop this would have been prior to Obama's second term. But when Obama got the second term, now it's going to be tough. And I'm for reforming it and repealing it if we can, where we can.
Sure.
But it means if there are good parts to it and we need to keep that, I'm fine with it. But let's make sure that it's done not as a federal program, certainly not as a single payer program.
I want, before we run out of time, because you have so much more experience than I'll ever have, or knowledge than I'll ever have on this, I wanted to get your take on you had Obama supporting the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. The people in Egypt just told the Muslim Brotherhood to pound sand, and the military was gratefully was able to physically get them out of office and reform it. You had the whole Benghazi fiasco, which looked as if what happened was the ambassador, our United States ambassador, was in Benghazi trying to funnel arms into Syria and wasn't supposed to be doing that. So for whatever reason, Obama didn't support him in his hour of need, and those guys got basically slaughtered. And now we're in a situation where we're supporting terrorists in Syria, the same people that we've been fighting for I don't know how many years. It looks like those are the same people, and we're supporting in Syria to take over the Assad government. And now we got Christians being killed in Syria, and when the Muslim Brotherhood was in charge of Egypt, there's Christians being killed in Egypt. There are churches being burnt down, and it just seems all backwards. But I don't know the inside story like you would. Can you give me?
I'm not. As far as an inside story, honestly, Gary. I mean, unless you're in the government at the time, you really don't know everything that's going on. You try to find out, but the truth is, it's a botched foreign policy. We're getting involved with two sides, neither of whom like us. So why take sides between one or the other unless it doesn't make any sense? And that's what's going on in Syria. But the bigger picture is the whole destabilization of the Middle East, and Israel is in dire straits right now. I mean, they are really under threat. I mean, you got people who don't even believe they should be in existence. Mm-hmm. They're the only ally we really truly have in the Middle East, and yet, and then now you got the nuclear deal. You didn't mention that, but the nuclear deal in Iran, and what the heck is that all about? And how serious is that? And what are they hiding? I mean, you can't go in with a blindfold on, but everything is just a mess. In Egypt, I mean, say what you want about Mubarak, but Mubarak was a friend for a lot of years and was certainly a stabilizing force in the Middle East. I'm not, but I don't know. what the circumstances were, but it seemed to me that they botched all of that in Egypt. They're probably going to botch it in Iran, especially if Secretary Kerry believes that somehow these people are telling him the truth, which I don't believe. I mean, if they can prove that, I think they're hiding more weapons.
It's possible, yeah.
And the bottom line is, these people don't even believe in the existence of the right of Israel to survive as a nation. And and I'll end on this point about it, the thing that scares me the most, and I did see some intelligence on this years ago, it's been a while, so it's got to be worse now, that these so-called dirty nukes, these small tactical nuclear weapons, if these guys get their hands on this stuff and get to where they can distribute it in America, I mean, could you imagine? I asked one day, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I asked the head of the CIA, what is your biggest fear? Now, there's nothing to say that there was no plan to do this about what I'm going to say, but I just said, what is your biggest fear? The biggest fear, what keeps you up at night? He said, I'll tell you what it is. He said, could you imagine, I want to preface this by saying there was no evidence of this, just his biggest fear. Could you imagine if they were able to get tactical nukes in this country somehow, right? And then pick any day in the week, let's say Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, pick 50 different churches or apartment buildings or restaurants or any public facility, a football stadium, whatever, wherever there are people, pick a time and blow a ball up at the same time. You'd be breaking news. Bomb goes, a tactical nuclear weapon goes off in Dallas. Tactical nuclear weapon goes off in Sacramento or Manchester. Who knows? And it's possible.
Yeah.
These people are coming across the border in Mexico and in Canada, and we don't know what they got.
Right.
And it scares me to death. And I think rather than just whine about it, we've got to step up and understand the force. These people hate us. Yeah. They want to kill us because of what we believe, not because of anything we did, but just what we believe. We're Christians, or we're a Christian nation, we're a Judeo-Christian nation, and they want to kill us because they just want to kill us. It started in the Crusades, and it's going to keep, and it's still going on. And we got to be prepared to fight it. You cannot back up and give in to these people. Force is the only thing they understand. And at the same time, we're also getting a little sick of these wars that are just grinding our troops. Nothing hurts me more, having been in the military myself and been in the Vietnam War, than seeing some TV clip from the news media where you got 15 or 20 guys out on patrol somewhere in the middle of nowhere in Afghanistan, totally left isolated, with nothing but, small weapons, being surrounded by a bunch of Taliban and being knocked off one by one. How in the world do we let that happen? That's a botched policy that ain't coming from the military, because the military is not letting that happen. That's coming from the civilian leadership. They're not going to let 15 or 20 of their buddies left out there surrounded in a valley by a bunch of mountains occupied by Taliban and picking them off one at a time. They're not going to let that happen. That's happening because of bad policy, by saying we've got to shoot second after they shoot at you, or be careful, don't shoot over in that corner, even though that guy's blowing your buddies away, but there's a couple of kids in the corner, don't shoot. Stay out of it. Let the military do what they're paid to do, what they know how to do, what they're trained to do.
Right.
I know we had Representative Lynn Blankenbecker on, and she said it was so bad because she was a nurse in Gulf War I, Gulf War II, and in Afghanistan. And it broke her heart because she would have little kids come in, she'd patch them up, and because she's a human being, she would become attached to them. And they would go home, and she would find out that the parents, if the kids were still too badly hurt, they would shoot them out back of the house.
Yeah.
The reason is because there was incentive to push the children in front of the American vehicles, because the American government pays you $5,000 as compensation for an accidental injury or death. So we are, by what we're doing, because we are so ignorant, the government is so large, and everything is done by top-down.
Well, it is, and I think we're viewed in these countries with disrespect, with contempt. I think they feel we're paper tigers, It's a trite expression, but right now, if you were a freedom fighter in Afghanistan, somebody that really does not like the Taliban and would like to see them thrown out of there, or in Iraq or anywhere else, how would you really have faith that the United States is going to keep its commitment? I mean, look, this is what Karzai is going through now. I'm not a big Karzai fan, but he's worried. What's going to happen? I mean, I'm putting I'm going to try to put my butt on the line to keep American forces here. But if they pull out, I'm left high and dry, and they're going to kill me. Right. And so they're trying to save their own butt, but they don't have a confidence that the Americans are going to stick to any policy. And Obama's already announced to the world when we're going to take troops out. He's already given them a timeline. So I mean, what's the point? I mean, they know. So, and I know people who are contractors in Afghanistan right now have told me that it's horrible. I mean, basically the money, American dollars are coming in. They build all these facilities. They're now trying to tear them down as much as they can as they leave. But the Taliban are getting paid off by some of the good guys, supposedly good guys, but they're scared to death that when America leaves, they're going to get killed by the Taliban. So they're giving the Taliban the money that's supposed to be used to take down these facilities. Yeah. To save their own skins when we leave. It's a disaster, it's just been poorly run and poorly done, and look, we need leadership. We need adult leadership. That's the bottom line. We don't have it.
No, they won't get that from me.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, no, that's why I'm not running for the United States Senate. Senator Smith, it is a pleasure. You did a great job when you were a senator. As far as I'm concerned, we don't have time to go into this, and I don't expect a rebuttal to it or a comment, but as far as I was concerned, in 2002, between the Republican Party insiders threw you under the bus, and I know it was myself and a lot of other Republicans were absolutely livid because they didn't give you a fair shot because they wanted their friend to get in. And to me, that's what happened, and it was insane. There was a lot of Republican conservatives who kind of left the party after that. They just, I don't want to have anything to do with them.
Are you on short on time?
We got 30 seconds or so.
30-second response. I'm here not to play that. There's a great line in a Willie Nelson song. I find it easy to forgive, but forgetting takes a little while. Yeah. And that's kind of where I am. I'm not fighting a battle. I hope these folks will understand that if you're gonna come out and campaign to try to help rise to the challenges facing America today, having a grudge and coming in with a grudge and going into a campaign that way is not the way to get it done. I mean, I'm willing. I've taken my shots. I'll get up. And that's fine, but I hope that people understand that's not why I'm running. I'm not running to replay that. I didn't like it, to be honest with you. Yeah. It happened. So be it. Move on. Let's rise to the challenge that faces this country. That's why I'm running.
So anyway, thank you very much, Senator. You're awesome.
Yes, thank you, Senator.
You're welcome.
Nice to meet you.
If you're out driving over the new year, watch out for ducks.
Yes.
Right? Am I right?
Yes, absolutely.
Watch out for ducks or Duck Dynasty?
Well, that too.
No, yeah, watch out for duck. Watch Duck Dynasty, but watch out for ducks.
No, don't watch Duck Dynasty.
No, it's actually pretty cool. No.
I'll take your word for it. And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, folks. We'll see you next year.
Bye, everybody.
Oh.